Hey, second grade art friends, it's Mrs. Herbay. So last week we talked about drawing fish, and you guys learned a little bit about what a Gyotaku fish print is. And so this week what we're going to do is we're going to actually, I'm going to have you, I sent home a piece of styrofoam that looks like this. Okay, it's about this size. And then I also sent home some paper, some thin copy paper that is the size of the styrofoam. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to take the thin piece of paper. You can put the styrofoam aside, and you're also going to want to grab a pencil. Okay, and that's all you're going to need right now. And then you're also going to need a photo reference of a fish. And you're welcome to use either one that you did last week that you liked, or you're welcome to try another one. Okay, so go ahead and grab that, and then we'll get started. All right, guys, so how we are going to create our own fish prints is that what we are going to do is we are going to draw our fish, and then what's going to happen is we are going to attach our drawing to this piece of styrofoam, and then we're going to trace back over our pencil lines with a ballpoint pen, and it's going to imprint our design into the styrofoam. If you were at school, we would be rubbing this special ink over the styrofoam and then printing our prints. But since you're at home, we're going to do a different option, but we're still going to be printing your fish, and we're going to be using water-soluble markers, okay? And so your fish, this is an example of a fish print made by a student that they printed at school. And it's red paper, and then they used green ink. But if you notice, you can see all of the scale texture and the fin texture because they were able to include all of those details in their drawing. So I wanted to show you this just as an important reminder that when we're drawing our fish, we want to include all of the details that we can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get myself ready. I think I want to draw this fish right here. And I got my pencil, and I'm going to wait till you guys get your stuff, and then we'll get started. All right, so on this smaller piece of paper, you might say, well, how do I fit this big fish onto this little piece of paper? And so what I'm going to do is at first I'm going to kind of make a plan, and I'm going to figure out, well, if this is the end of my paper, and this is where the tail is. So I'm going to make sort of a little bit of a light mark like that for the tail, okay? And then I'm going to come back up here to the front part, and then this is where the end part of the fish's mouth is, right? So I'm just going to kind of lightly sketch that a little bit there. So it kind of gives me an idea of this is the end and this is the beginning. And then there's a little bit of space in between where the fish's body is, right? So this is kind of where the body ends, and then the tail attaches, okay? So I have from right here to kind of go up and then back around to there, okay? And then I have from here to kind of go down and around and up like that to kind of draw the fish's body, okay? So it's just like last week where we talked about drawing this sort of eyeball or football shape, and then on this particular fish there's a little bit of a rectangle kind of coming off, and then it's kind of coming down and around like this, okay? So I roughly have the fish's body, okay? And if you'll notice, I was just drawing really nice and lightly, and I was trying to get all of my details. I noticed there was a little bit of a hump there, so I wanted to include that. So I made a little adjustment there like that. Okay, so once you have the basic body, then let's go ahead. We're going to add the tail. So the tail kind of comes up and around and in. And back like that. And again, if I want to kind of make a few changes as I take another look at it, that's perfectly good. Okay. And then I'm going to start to add the fins. So there's this fin here that kind of comes up and around, and then it kind of comes up like that. And then I've got a fin back here that kind of comes out like that and attaches back. And then I'm going to put the gills next to kind of give me an idea. So this is kind of where one of the gills is. And I kind of see another line that kind of comes out here like this. And I've got the fish's eye. And then there is some, I'm actually going to back up these gills. I put them a little too close. And that's the nice thing about when you're drawing from observation, you can kind of check things out, make some adjustments as you go. All right, and then there's a fin here that attaches there, and then there's a little bit of one right down here like that, and then there's one there, and then there's one kind of coming down here like this. Okay, so now I have my fins. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my other details. So for example, I'm going to add the lines that I see in the fins, and I'm going to pay particular attention to which direction these lines go. And these lines are going kind of diagonally up and down. So I'm going ahead and putting all those details in. And the lines are pretty close together. Okay. And then when I look at this particular fin, the lines are going this way. And same for these ones. Like that. Same for this one. And then last but not least, these ones are going this way. Okay, so go ahead and do all of your details, and then the last thing we'll add is the scales in a minute once you guys get all of your details and you get your fish spaced onto your piece of paper. Okay? Alright guys, so for the last step we're going to draw the scales, and the strategy that I like the best for the scales is kind of drawing, I'm going to just be drawing the sort of like the letter C, and I'm going to do my first row kind of right after the gills. And then I'm just going to keep going until I reach the back. And it may take me a little bit, but I'll be happy that I added all the details in the end. Okay? All right, guys. So once you have your fish drawn, what you're going to do is you're going to take your piece of styrofoam and you're going to take your fish, and hopefully you have masking tape at home. And what you're going to do is you're going to grab your masking tape. I'm going to grab mine. And what you want to do is you want to rip off a couple pieces. And I'm just going to make sure that my fish is lined up with the edge of my styrofoam. And then I'm going to put one piece of tape here. And if the paper hangs off a little bit off the end of the styrofoam, that's okay, as long as your fish is not, your fish drawing is not on the bottom. And then I'm going to add, so I added a piece here, and then I'm going to add a piece on this side down here. Okay. And then make sure it's on there nice and smooth. And then just for extra measure, I can add a little piece right here up in this corner and a little piece down here like this. Okay. So now it's all taped onto my styrofoam. Okay. So go ahead and do that. If you happen to need a little bit of masking tape, let me know. I can send that home for you. But hopefully you have some. Scotch tape does not work as well. It kind of doesn't stick as well to the styrofoam, but you could try that as well if you don't have masking tape. Okay? All right, guys. This is the last step, and it's really important that you have something called a ballpoint pen. So this is one. It's a paper mate, or sometimes they look like this, where they have this kind of a lid on them. And again, if you don't have one, if you let me know, I can send you home one. I have lots of them in the art room, but they're a pretty common thing. They're just like everyday pens that you use, you know, when you fill out forms at the doctor's office or things like that. So your mom or dad should have one, but you want to make sure it's a ballpoint pen. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your ballpoint pen and you are going to carefully trace over all of your pencil lines. Now, when you start to press into your drawing and draw, you're going to feel, and if you press nice and hard, you're going to feel kind of a squishing sound, and you're going to feel a squishing underneath the pen as you're drawing over your pencil lines. So it's something that you shouldn't be able to do really fast. You want to take your time. And in some cases, what happens is students press hard and they almost rip, like they rip some, like the paper rips, and that's okay. That means you're pressing nice and hard, but you don't want to press so hard that your pen goes through the styrofoam. So it's kind of a little bit tricky kind of figuring this out, but if you're just going to press hard enough to kind of feel a squish, and you're just going to take your time. So if you go fast, you're probably not pressing hard enough. And this is going to make your little hand tired. So you might not want to do this all at one time. I would suggest maybe doing a little bit and then come back to it later. But it will really build up the strength in your fingers, okay? So I've just outlined this part, and what I'm going to do is, you should not try to undo your tape and look, because you want your paper to stay in the same position, but I just wanted to pull this off to show you guys kind of what this looks like when you start to carve into the styrofoam. It looks really kind of cool, okay? But you want to leave it taped so that it doesn't shift around. because then you're going to all kinds of funny different lines. All right. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to, what I like to do first is kind of outline the bigger areas first. So I'm just outlining all of the outer body lines. And then after I get those done, then I'll start with the other details like the fins. And I'll outline those. And I can kind of hear this squishing sound underneath my pen as I'm going. And you might say, why do we have to press hard? Well, the reason is that we're creating a surface to print on. And so what's going to happen is the ink is not going to go into, the ink is going to stay on the top of the printing plate, and it's not going to go down into the lines that we are carving. So that's what's going to give us the really cool look that we're going for. So I just did that, and then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and finish the fins, and then I'll start working on the scales, and then I'll be ready for printing next week. Okay, so take your time. If your hand gets tired, you can come back to this. And again, if you have any questions, I'll look forward to talking to you guys on Thursday. So have a great week.